Hey everybody, this is Matt here. In this video, I'm going to show you all how to find your file information of the files that you have in Movavi Video Editor 2026. You can see I have some video files here under project files. Okay, I can click one and now secondary click it, and I'm going to move the mouse pointer down and click file information. And you can see we can find this prompt box now with some information on the file. Most importantly, the frame rate and resolution, because we're most likely going to export all files to H.264 MP4. That is probably your best bet whenever, especially whenever in doubt. But you can see the resolution here is 1920 by 1080. That's 16 by 9 and 30 frames a second. That's the specs for three of these files. They're 1920 by 30, pardon me, 1920 by 1080, 30 frames a second. Okay, perfect. Now I can click a clip on the timeline. Now secondary click it and click about this file, and there it is again, file information. You can also do that with clips on the timeline. You can see it's 1920 by 1080 width and height, that's the resolution, and 30 frames a second. Okay, now I'm going to close that message box there. Excellent. Now that'll be handy when you go to export, because I think it's for ideal results. You want to keep the resolution and keep the resolution and keep the frame rate the same. Go as you export the incoming project files, you should export at the same frame rate and resolution ideally. Now with your camcorder, you can set the resolution a lot of the time and your frame rate of your camcorder. And a lot of the good camcorders these days, and even most webcams, are about 30 frames a second, whether they're 1280 by 720 resolution or 1920 by 1080 resolution. Okay, but ideally you want to export at the same resolution and frame rate. Although, however, I think even if it were 60 frames a second, your video clips, Movavi should be able to export the video, the final project, at 30 frames a second. The final video, I should say, pardon me, at 30 frames a second. But I think really ideally you want to stick with the original frame rate and the original resolution. Okay, so try to make sure you keep everything the same and try to make sure you set your camcorder clips to all the same. Okay, perfect. Now, how about we just simply export these clips now so I can show you this a little further. I'm going to click export. Okay, and we can see the file format here on the left is MP4. That's the best bet. Of course, my title is file information and my folder is appropriately selected, so I don't need to do anything there. I'm now going to click the advanced tab here, the advanced icon I should say. And perfect, everything is set up perfectly. The video codec is H.264. That's probably the best bet throughout the most part, especially when in doubt. And we can see the resolution's 1920 by 1080, 16 by 9, that's great. 1920 by 1080, the frame rate is 30 frames a second. The bit rate here, I'm simply going to select auto. I think that's the best bet. The sample rate, I think the default is more around 44, 100 there. I'll go back to that. Audio channels and stereo, that's fine, okay. But considering, as I said, the original frame rate was 30 frames a second and the original resolution was 1920 by 1080 for all three of these clips, okay. Now, so that's perfect. Now I'm going to click the gear up here to the right of H.264. And the speed is slow. Now you have options here. I think typically the default is fast, but I had it selected at slow there. And the slower you go, the higher the quality, okay? But typically I think medium or slow is fine. Now like ultra fast is only for drafts. Like anything I think faster than fast would be only for drafts, but I would recommend, if you want my opinion, medium or slow is the best. Medium or slow. One of the two would be the best. Now, for a very important project, very slow is the way to go, okay? But it will be a longer export. So I'm simply going to click slow here. Perfect. And as for the preset, film is probably your best bet for the most part. I mean, it's not an animation. You have the option of animation, retro, slideshow, fast decoder, zero latency. But really, in my opinion, film is going to be your best option most of the time. Pretty much 98.9% of the time. Okay, so I'm going to click film there. Perfect. The speed is going to be slow. On the closer side, click to pass and holding. So I'm going to click the OK icon there. And you see most importantly, the resolution and frame rate's the same as the project files originally. So we're going to export them out at 1920 by 30 frames a second. Now I'm going to move the mouse pointer down and click OK. Now I'm going to click Start to start the export. Okay, the file information.mp4 has been saved successfully. And open output folder is checked, and that is what I want to do. Move the mouse pointer down here and click OK. Now I'm going to double click file information here so we can open it in Windows Media Player. Okay, now I'm going to close Media Player here. Now I'm going to close the folder window. Alright, well, also I'm sorry for how dull those clips were. They were kind of boring clips, but anyway, remember, ideally, most importantly, you should export to the original project files, frame rate and resolution, okay? MP4 is probably your best file format, and the H.264 codec is probably best, especially whenever in doubt. Alright. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the YouTube comment section. I'll answer all I can. I'll try to get back to you when I can. Well, there you go. Thank you all so very much for your time. Thank you all so very much for watching.